Good evening and welcome to episode
Five, season 2.
Welcome to episode 5 of series 2 of Veterinary Ramblings. My name's Mike Brampton.
And my name's Julian Hode.
Welcome aboard, everybody.
Welcome.
Cheers.
Pour yourself a drink, sit back and listen.
Enjoy the show, because we've got quite a guest on our show this evening, and I have no idea where this show is going to go.
You may not believe it sitting at home there. You may not believe that actually this isn't always completely scripted, but actually, hands up, it's not completely scripted.
No.
We obviously have several pages of script. More here. There we go.
Yeah.
But it's not completely scripted.
Well, no. Well, I never look at the notes. I
can't read the writing. I'll be honest. It's a little bit of a mess, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't get my head around any of it at all. But such is life. But hi, I'm Mike Brampton,
and my name is Julian Hode.
Welcome to Veterinary Ramblings. We've certainly got a well-travelled visitor this evening, haven't we?
We have. He's been to pretty much every country in the world and lived for a good 5 or 10 years on every country in the world.
Yep.
Makes him about 250. And he doesn't look it at all, does he?
No, he doesn't. I calculated he was actually 263.
Is he really?
Yeah, I've only known him for about 25 years. But
yeah, I've known him for about that. And he hasn't changed a bit during that time.
Not
at over 200, you're not going to, are you?
No.
I've noticed he's got a little fin on top.
Really?
A little bit, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Bless. I've got a whole plan in place in case that happens for me.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Not for a while yet for us, though, eh?
No.
Good.
No chance on that one. Fair enough. But yes. So our guest tonight works as a clinical instructor and mentor for the new Surrey Vet School.
Mm-hmm.
He has also been a small animal editor and lately the consultant editor for UK Vet's Companion Animal Journal.
Other veterinary journals do exist, of course.
Yes, of course. Other veterinary journals do exist. He's actually done that for nearly 20 years now, would you believe?
Has he really?
Yeah. Oh. So he's also written a book.
He has written a book.
At least one.
Yeah. We'll have to get him talking about that, because one of the best chapters in it is how to say farewell to a dog. And I think that's quite an important one to touch on, really, isn't it?
Well, we'll ask him about that because he's also a small animal vet working on the front line. He gets involved in he's very involved in animal welfare.
And wildlife rescue.
Wildlife rescue, indeed, which is something I share because I'm a trustee of one of the UK's biggest wildlife animal charities. And general all-round good egg. Should we get him in? Because I've just heard him pinged say that he's in the waiting room.
Let's get him in. Let's get him in. Don't wait too long.
What's his name again?
It's Carl. It's Carl Gorman.
Okay. So with that, good evening, Carl Gorman.
Actually, what?
Good evening, Carl.
I'm amazed.
What? It worked.
I'm amazed from your end, and I'm amazed from my end as well.
Well, we can't get any better than that, so let's say good night.
Absolutely. So with that note,
while we're ahead,
hope you enjoyed the show.
Cheers.
Hope you enjoyed the show, and may your dog go with you. Good night.
May your dog go with you. Yeah. I was skiing in France a couple of years back, and we went out skiing one day with the owner of the chalet and his 8-year-old son. And it was a cold morning, so I put an extra layer, and I was sitting in a chairlift like that. And this little kid looked round, and he nudged his dad in the ribs. He said, "Mr. Hode's very fat, isn't he?" And his father said, "Now, come on, don't be fattest." He said, "I'm not. He's fattest by far."
That's brilliant. Do you ski, Carl?
I do. I haven't been for a couple of years, but yes, I enjoy it a lot.
Where do you normally go?
All over the place, but mostly to France, but been to Livigno in Italy. And actually the first place I went, which was the first winter after I qualified, was up to Val Thorens, which was the highest ski resort. Having never been skiing before, it wasn't necessarily the best idea, but I got on very well. And our ski instructor was a French guy called André. And he thought I was doing so well, but by the Thursday of our first week, he decided to take me on a tour with all the experienced skiers. So we went up to the top of the highest ski resort in France. Mm-hmm. And I remember getting out of the lift at the top, and it was misty. And there was this ledge that must have been about 8 feet wide that we all had to shuffle along. And then he said, "Follow me," and headed down this vertical slope. And I was sort of making my way down, and there was girls in the group clinging to the slope, crying as I went by. I thought, well, if I can survive this, I can do it.
It's quite vertiginous, isn't it? Off the chairlift onto the glacier at the top of Val Thorens.
Yeah, it was. It was designed to make or break, I think.
I skied Val Thorens once.
Did you?
Yeah. I ended up with concussion and third-degree burns all down my back.
It's funny you should say that, because one of our group, skied off a 30-foot drop.
It's the only time I broke 200 kilometers an hour, and I crashed in the run-out area at the French World Cup in 1980, probably about 89. So I skied the course, skied through the time trap, and there was a compression, a sharp dip just at the edge of the bottom of the timing trap, and I tumbled over backwards, and because I didn't finish standing upright in control, my time didn't count. However, it did cause a postponement of the whole event, because the whole of the world's top 10 ladies had all crashed at that point, and as I was just outside the top 20, I was one of the first men to actually run it. And they thought that it was obviously a girl thing, that they all wiped out. So they sent the men down, and I was one of the first to go, and I wiped out as well. So with my wipeout, they postponed everything. And unfortunately for me, all the medics were busy at that time. And I've got a vague memory of one of my pals skiing down to the resort with me. And the other memory I have is I walked into the wrong hotel and walked into the first bedroom that I could find, and the French family were there having their lunch.
I thought it was going to be the old excuse. I'm sorry, mademoiselle, I'm in the wrong floor.
You think racing? You think ski racing's glamorous? Get out
so there were carpet burns, were they, Mike?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because at that speed, as you're tumbling and bouncing, your thin rubber suit very quickly heats up with the friction off the ice. So you sort of, trying to move various bits to make it more comfortable. I went back up that afternoon, and I recorded, they moved the start level a bit lower down, and I recorded 186.86 kilometers per hour.
Unbelievable. That's incredible.
God.
The things we do in our youth, eh?
Absolutely. I got 76 miles an hour once. I think that could have been Val Thorens.
That's good going. That's good going.
I've got keys with that.
Yeah. Intentionally?
All the way down.
Yes.
Yeah, 76. I was clocked at 76 miles per hour at the Val d'Isère downhill. I crashed that day as well, which is why I took up speed skiing. But anyway, let's move on.
let's do it. Let's move on. I remember the
looking
first
incredulous here, Carl. Did you not know that you were talking to one of the world's fastest ski racers back in the day?
Back in the day, very impressive.
No. They're doing 150 miles an hour nowadays.
Are they really?
Really?
Yeah. So my 120 mile an hour is nothing. 151, I think the world record is now.
That's just insane.
It is.
Yeah. Sorry, I've killed the whole evening.
How do you wipe your goggles or answer a phone call at that speed? It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Oh, you can't. I could tell you a few stories about that, but I won't worry about that now. Because actually, Carl and I share some other interests, which is things like long distance walking and cycling. I understand.
Well, I share the long distance walking with you.
You do.
I don't really share the cycling because I'm not very good at cycling because I continuously get knocked off when I cycle, which isn't good for me.
Well, if you stopped telling people when you were going out, Julian, they might.
I'll be on the A24 from about 10:30 heading north.
You got me, thanks, mate. White bands. Did you do much cycling, Carl?
I do, yeah. I don't aim to go very fast, but we like to do the distances. So I'll apart from the off-road things, the London to Edinburgh cycle was our sort of.
When did you do that?
That's about 5 years ago, I think.
Have you done anything like that since?
Not since. No. Well, I did I've done a few velothons and things. So we did the Wales Velothon, which was 2 years ago, and that was quite tough simply because, it was fantastic because they closed 100 miles of road for us to ride on. So it was like being on the Tour de France,
I'd like that. I'd like it cycling if they close the road.
Oh, yeah,
and it was boiling hot. It was 30 degrees at the top of the Brecons when we got to the top. So they had to put in extra water tankers, and people were out there with their hose in their front garden spraying.
Oh, bless. That's fantastic.
It was, as an experience, it was fantastic. The other ones we've done, they haven't closed the road, so it's not been quite such fun. And we were due to do the Dragon Ride this year, which is again, I think it was 90 kilometres around the Brecons. But of course,
that's 90 kilometres with the final 10 or 12.
That's right.
Slope, something like that, isn't it, on the Dragon?
And that was the trouble with the Velothon, was that it was a long ride, but you went about 60 kilometres on relatively flat stuff, and then all of a sudden you went up the tumble, which is really steep, and then everything was just hills after that. So they waited till you'd sort of worn yourself out a bit, and then
that's not fair, is it? But long distance walking, yes, certainly into that. And you're in the process of doing a walk in Wales, aren't you? Not off the Dyke, is it?
Around the coastal path, and actually eventually I suppose that it's joined up with Offa's Dyke path to so you can actually do a whole
circumnavigation of Wales.
Yes,
circumperambulation.
Perambulation, that's it.
But could you not get on your bicycle at Conwy Castle in the north and then ride down to Cardiff?
Well, I'm sure you could. Yes. Well, I've done it the other way from Cardiff.
Windy roads there
to Holyhead, which was very good.
You can do it off-road, can't it? It's an off-road route, isn't it?
Yeah, the Lon Lass, which is the green route. And it took 4 days, and you crossed 3 mountain ranges, which is always good. And it was a good achievement, I think, at the time.
Why would you do such a thing, Carl?
It was to raise money for our local school on that occasion. We were after a classroom my kids went to a very, very tiny village school in a village near Newbury, and only about 100 pupils altogether. But we needed a new classroom, so we just set off to raise the money, and that was one of the things we did. It was good.
Fantastic.
Fresh.
You're not suggesting that the government wouldn't reach deeply into its pocket and fund the classroom itself, were you?
No.
That way heresy lies, surely.
Oh, Carl wouldn't do that sort of thing, because Carl's no.
So is your school part of the Worthless campaign? It's a thing, Mike, in Sussex. Most of the primary schools and the senior schools actually belong to something called the Worthless campaign, because pound for pound, our students get less than London students.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Isn't that normally reserved for people up in Yorkshire and Northumberland that complain about that?
Yeah, no, it's everyone who's not in London.
Yes.
So they think enough anyway.
Right. So it's called the Worthless campaign.
Worthless.
Right.
Yeah.
Suggesting that they are that pupils in Sussex are worth less than those in the boroughs of London.
In the metropolis, absolutely.
Metropolis. All right. Have you come across that, Carl?
No, I haven't. Although I do know about the because ex-wife was governor of the school, and also Kit Sturgis is governor of his local school down in the New Forest, and he was telling me the struggles, because I suppose you see things from both sides, don't you? As a sort of parent or just a normal person, you think, oh my goodness, why don't they have an extra teacher here, or why can't they provide this? Why do you have to pay for school trips? And then you see the other side of the coin, where they have such tight budgets, and something has to give, because there's just no room for manoeuvre. And you're quite right, the schools outside of London get a much lower allowance and budget.
They do. Carl, you we've got on your bio that you absolutely hate travelling, and you've only ever lived in England, and pretty much parochial, don't go anywhere. Is that right?
Yes, it's till I moved to Newbury, I'd never really lived in the same place for more than 2 or 3 years. So it feels a bit strange to have been in this same place for 30-something years now. 1989 we moved and took on the practice.
Wow.
But yes, born in Malaysia, moved to West Africa at the age of 4 and stayed there for 7 years. Then back to Malaysia, and then back to Africa, and off to them. Well, my father was in the Middle East briefly. We didn't actually stay there while he was there, but Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Thailand. It was a lovely childhood, interspersed by spells at English boarding schools with all the, not in the modern era, it was in the proper old Tom Brown school days era, with fags and running around the cricket pitch in the morning for punishment. And yes.
Good.
Wow.
See mates for extra tuck and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we used to tuck 3 times a week, and we were allowed 3. It was 7 old pence, and when decimalisation came in, they cut us down to 3p. It should have been 3.5p, but we got 3p instead, which would buy you a Mars bar or a packet of crisps.
Well, your pint in those days, wouldn't it? Not at school, probably.
A couple of pints and a room for the night.
So you've, because there's a whole index, isn't there, that says where the retail prices are in relation to the price of a Mars bar.
Mars bar, absolutely, yes. And that's quite a good idea, really.
Yeah. So you follow that, do you?
No, I did for a while. I remember being very interested in it at one point, but it got a bit ridiculous. I do remember going to, when I was at Tunbridge, my dad came to see me one weekend, and we were wandering through the town and happened to look at an estate agent's. And I remember seeing this fantastic house. It was a massive house, pool, tennis courts, outhouses, a billiard room, which I was particularly impressed by, and acres and acres of garden. And I remember this house cost £50,000. I remember saying to my dad, I said, one day I'll have a house that's worth £50,000.
And you haven't quite made it yet. So it sounds like an amazing upbringing, Carl.
It was great, yes. And my dad was he was a civil engineer, but he was always very interested in animals. So we also had a huge menagerie wherever we were, sort of mouse, deer, and cockatoos. And he used to like German shepherds, so we had about 3 or 4 German shepherds in Malaysia. When we went to the Gambia, West Africa, we had lots of parrots. And I remember being given a homing pigeon that I called Miranda once, which was just as we were moving up country. So this friend of ours gave us this pigeon, which I put in a small cardboard box, took up country to where we were moving, because normally we lived by the coast, but for a year we were posted into the sort of dark interior. And of course, Miranda promptly flew home. So I had her for about 10 minutes, and then off she went.
Yeah, I used to sell pigeons too. Well, needs must. Times are tight.
Make a buck.
Here you go, Gov. Good pigeon. Yeah, always come home. Off you go.
I used to know the nice thing about the Gambia was the first Prime Minister and President of the Gambia was a guy called Dawda Jawara, and he was a vet who went to Glasgow vet school. So I was in good hands in the Gambia. And had a government veterinary officer called Donny Graham, who was a Scots guy, and he had a parrot. I remember his parrot could whistle the Laurel and Hardy theme tune. That was his party trick. Oh dear.
We're straying away from the point. I can't remember what the point was, but
What we were talking
I know
about.
what it is. Let's move on, because we're talking about long distance walking,
Yeah.
and then you said you were in the Norfolk Broads, and that would segue quite nicely into. I've just come back from Northumberland, where I walked past of Hadrian's Wall.
Ah,
That's a fascinating place, isn't it?
great, really good. Yes, yes, yes. I walked that a few years ago. That was another charity do, and I think 3 of us went with my collie dog, and we walked at the length of Hadrian's Wall, which was fantastic.
How long did it take?
Never been to Newcastle before, and that was an eye opener.
Can you speak the language?
Aye, bonny lad.
Yeah. So it was the young ladies out in the middle of winter wearing virtually no clothes that was the eye opener.
Well, yes, any time of year. I don't know what they do when it gets hot, because they've got nothing else to take off.
There's nothing else that's there to take off. So it's around 90 miles, isn't it?
Yes.
So you could walk it in 3 days if you really put your foot down. But I guess what you do it in 5, do you? And
we did it in 4.
Right.
We stayed in. We stayed for 2 nights at one end in a place called Walk, which was near Newcastle, and we stayed in a pub called the Black Bull, and it was right next door to a pub called the White Bull. And apparently there'd been one pub called the Grey Bull, and the 2 owners had fallen out, so they'd split it into the Black Bull.
Is that right?
And I remember one of the guys I went walking with was quite posh. He's an auctioneer for a local auction house here, and we decided to eat in the first night. So we sat in the restaurant, and the landlady was most excited to have residents or guests, and she brought us our food, and then we asked us what we'd like to drink. And my friend Chris said, "Could we see the wine list?" And she looked at him in confusion, and she went, "Well, we've got red or white." So we chose the red, and she said at the end of the meal, she said, "Oh, how was it?" And he went, "It's very nice, thank you, being polite." And so when we ate there the next night, she said, "Because you recommended the wine, I've been off and I bought 4 cases of it." So she filled the cellar with whatever dreadful red wine she'd got.
Outrageous. So go on. So that was your first night, and so you walked from east to west.
We walked from east to west. So the second 2 nights we were in a sort of bed and breakfast near the other end. And I don't remember too much about that, but I do remember the local pub, which had as many whiskies as you could, as there are stars in the sky.
It's a beautiful place, actually. I've never been there before. Not Brandon, Northumberland.
All right.
And I absolutely love Roman history.
Yes.
And archaeology. I could have just spent every single day on the forts or on the walls and things. But unfortunately, I have a wife and 2. Not unfortunately, but fortunately, I have a wife and 2 daughters. Sadly, they're not as interested in archaeology as me. And by the 3rd fort, which is really nice, it was Housestead's fort, which is great. It's still got the only intact Roman latrine, which I made full use of when I was there. But we got there, so about a 10-minute walk in from the car park, and we got there, walked through the south gate, and my youngest daughter said, "Can we go now, get an ice cream?" No, we've only just arrived. Such a grumpy expression on anyone ever, and she maintained that expression for the next hour and a half. Well, I said, look, isn't this amazing? This is the North Gate. Now, by the looks of things, this was closed up shortly after the fort was opened. And actually, we can see why, can't we? Because the rebuff on the north side is actually very steep. So I suspect they would have built another gate. Yes, there it is.
I can feel the sympathy for the family.
Off they went to get an ice cream. They're gone. I looked at the latrines on my own.
Oh.
Mind you, if I hadn't, I would have been able to use them, so it's fine. Mike, we finished Hadrian's Wall now, I think.
Yes.
Mike.
Brampton.
Okay, Mike, That's it. There we go.
Oh, sorry.
No, we're finished now.
I must have nodded off there. Were you talking about Roman history by any chance there, Julian?
I might have mentioned it. Yeah, just once or twice.
Fair enough. Yeah,
Well,
I've walked along the wall. I walked along the wall. I've done it twice.
Excellent.
Have you?
Not all the way, because the Pennine Way goes up to the wall, across a little bit, and then it carries on off up into the Kielder Forest, up into the Scottish lowlands near Hoyk and somewhere else. Kirkjetholm.
That's a made-up name, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got a...
It doesn't mean anything. One of those things
Yeah,
that mean nothing.
But Mr. Wainwright of Wainwright's Walking Guide book did a very honourable thing in that when you arrive at the pub at the end of the Pennine Way, you go in there and you show them the book, and they show them that you pretend that you've walked the whole however 100 miles or 200 or 300 miles it is from Edale in Derbyshire, and they stand you a pint.
Very nice.
As a congratulations, you've walked the Pennine Way.
Oh, fantastic.
Many of you would consider that worth the trip just for a free pint.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's why I did it twice.
You can have a bottle of gin. I got a bottle of gin when I was up in Northumberland, and there's a place called Alnwick. Do you go to Alnwick when you were there? Spelled Alnwick.
Alnwick,
yeah.
And there's this bottle of gin made at Alnwick.
There's a castle there.
Alnwick Castle there, or a picture of the model. And I thought you might actually like this, Carl, if you did like any gin at all.
Well, I would do, yes.
Why is that? Are you particularly into horse riding then, Carl?
It's a reference to my weakness for my football team.
Your football team?
Do we call it a football team? I ask only for information. I'm not willing to...
We reached the heady heights of the European Cup final a year ago before
really
plunging back into the depths of obscurity.
So you're a big fan of Manchester United then?
Oh, God, help us.
I can see we're going to get some football hooligans mobbing the site now, aren't we?
Yeah, well, that's it. Got to appeal to my advice.
Yes, absolutely. Just wear a bloody mask.
Yes.
Sorry, yes. So I'm presuming that this is a team from the North London area?
Correct, yes.
Of Tottenham.
Tottenham, yes. The North London team. Because the other team are from Woolwich, really, and they sort of invaded a few years ago. That being Arsenal, by the way, Mike.
Right, okay, yes. Yes.
If they invaded, then what they should have done is build a wall, like a sort of mill wall or something, shouldn't they?
Yeah.
Just a big, there's Hadrian's Wall up north. There's Mill Wall down south to stop the Hotspur invaders.
So how did you get into Tottenham Hotspur and football in the first place?
Interestingly, well, when I went to boarding school first off, and it was 1969. The heady years of, I don't know, I don't think it was Stanley Matthews, but it was a while ago. Anyway, in the early 70s, everybody at school either supported Leeds or Chelsea.
Well, that was the days of Billy Bremner.
That's right. Yes, Peter Lorimer,
Peter Bonetti for Chelsea. Is that right?
Chelsea, yes, the Cat.
I'm far too young. I'm just thinking of Stanley Unwin.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. Don't worry, Carl. What I can do, if needs be, is I can just pop him into the waiting room, and we can talk manly sport like football.
He would as well. Don't trust him.
Yeah.
So to be contrary, really, I supported Spurs. Also because there was one other boy at school who'd come from the Gambia there, and his elder brother had supported Spurs, so I sort of had an in. And you know how these things are; they stick once you're there. You sort of become a die-hard supporter. So, and my poor son and my younger brother are afflicted in the same way. So.
Do you, okay, well, in that case, then let's carry that on, Julian. I mean, You know, are you afflicted in the same way? Is there a particular football team that you have an affinity for?
Do you know, I'm not really a football person at all, I'm afraid. Never have been.
Do you not get a tingle in the loins if you talk about Manchester City, or no? Is there
Right, no,
any
no,
interest at all?
I don't get many tingles in the loins these days.
Oh,
To be
right.
you save yourself a lot of anguish if you're not interested in the football. I have to say, it's you know, I aspire to that.
But you actually go and watch these teams, don't you? You go. And...
I do. Yes. Yeah. In fact, I was very lucky. They moved to their new stadium after a long delay, and the first match I got to go and see there was actually the quarter-final of the European Championships thing, and that was when we beat Manchester City, and it was an extraordinary night. And the stadium, you know, they keep saying it's the best stadium in the world, and I wouldn't know, but it is a fantastic stadium.
Which stadium is this? Sorry.
Well, it was White Hart Lane, but now it's the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which they sort of built over and around the existing Spurs stadium, which was quite impressive. So it's great, and it'll be very good for the area, because Tottenham's obviously quite a run down and deprived area, but to have this magnificent stadium will lift it, I'm sure.
It might become a new Chelsea, mightn't it?
Oh my God!
Because I'm sure that was run down at one stage, wasn't it? It's
yes, I'm sure it was. It was probably down to their last sort of Bentley or.
That's right. I imagine you're the same, Carl, that you get a big buzz out of treating the pets, but as big a buzz out of treating the owners.
Absolutely.
Getting to know them. A lot of the owners are now my friends. You know, I've been treating their pets for 15 years, and I'm closer to them than some distant members of my family. And it's really hard not having that rapport with them at the moment.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's why I do try to spend as much time with them in the car park as I can, so that we maintain that. But and also, you know, a lot of I've had 3 now elderly gentlemen. Just as I go to take the lead for their dog, they just put their hand out to shake my hand automatically, because that's just what they do. And then they're going, oh my goodness, I shouldn't be doing that.
I'll burn my hand when I get home, Mr. Gorman. It's all right. It's all right. I'll burn it. I'll chop it off. Let's chop my hand off. It's all right, old Mr. Frederick.
How about, I mean, euthanasia is the tough thing, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're quite lucky. We've got a decent garden out at the back, so we've been taking people around there and letting them sit with the dogs on the grass, and then we sort of gowned and gloved and done the deed there. Which is
we do the same thing. In strict lockdown, we had an extended giving set, and now obviously we can get a little bit closer. Cats as well, we tend to triple mix sedate them, so midazolam, medetomidine, and buprenorphine, and then we can do that outside, because often it's with the rule we have at the moment that one client only can come in. Well, that's not good enough, because actually when you're saying goodbye to your pet, it needs to be several of them, and usually the whole family. I'm saying that I'm quoting pretty much from a book I read not a long time ago by someone about euthanasia. A really good book by, I've got it here,
The Aged Dog or something, wasn't it?
C. Gorman.
C. Gorman. Was it called The Aged Dog? Something like that.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Actually, I know, in all seriousness, you have touched on a subject that's very close to the heart of every vet, and it's the most important part of our job, isn't it, Carl?
I think so, yes. And you know, we always say this to the young vets, and it's always true. You'll get far more thanks after you've put the dog to sleep than after all the effort you put to put it back together after its road traffic accident, or to pull it through leptospirosis or something. But you know, what the clients remember is how you deal with those final moments, and it's definitely very important. So yes, the aged dog. I knew you'd ask about the aged dog. So here is the aged dog.
Yeah,
all right.
There we go.
Okay, so Carl's holding up to the screen. The Aged Dog, which is a book titled The Aged Dog, with an old dog and a lady walking an old dog down a long track.
Yes. Now,
and she's quite aging as well, isn't she?
Yes, isn't she?
Euthanizing her as well, are you, Carl? I mean,
well, Henston, who published this did, you know, the Doglopedia, the Catlopedia.
Yeah.
Lovely covers to those books, weren't they? I mean, you know, look at, and then they come up with this for my bloody book. And that lady looks very much like a receptionist we used to have called Cat. Cat was a very elderly lady. I always remember she used to go and do an exercise class after work in the evening, and it was called Agile Not Fragile. But I think she was both fragile and aging, bless her. But anyway, but yes, you're quite right. You know, the chapter that the clients always come and point out to me, the chapter on euthanasia, said, "Oh, I read that. It made me cry."
It's a wonderful thing for us to be able to do as vets, to be able to stop suffering.
Yes.
And we're not going into the whole human euthanasia argument, but it is something that I think we have as almost a gift.
Privilege.
A privilege.
Yeah.
But with that privilege, obviously, comes huge responsibility, and we only get one chance at it.
Yes.
So your chapter actually was written very compassionately and very well, and gives, I think, new graduates the right steer to getting things right the first time, because the first time is the only time. Although I'm sure you'll have anecdotes of when things didn't go right, as every vet does. And when you go to a vet reunion, particularly in the first couple of years after graduating, the most horrific stories are always around that time.
They are. I mean, I think that I remember we used to dread visits for euthanasia when you were a young vet, because of the, you know, you're out of your supportive environment on your own, or on your own with a nurse if you're lucky, and all the classic things like going to the house and the cat flying round and round the room, and you're trying to bat it down every time it goes by. Or they always people never turn off the television when you go to put the helmet.
No, they don't.
It's terrible. You're trying to concentrate on the dog, but something interesting is going on the television.
It's a goal!
Oh my goodness me, that's a young Morgan Fairchild, isn't it? There, she's looking all right. Anyway, so we're no, isn't she though? I remember I did a euthanasia once in a huge house in Kent, absolutely massive house, and it was in the kitchen, which is bigger than the house I'm living in now. This kitchen, and it was a Great Dane, and everything went well. And the couple were obviously inconsolable and were hugging each other and the dog. And I sort of fumbled over a few words of sympathy and said, "Well, I'll let myself out then." And they both turned around and said, "All right, thanks." I said, "That's right." I turned around and I thought, "Now, what bloody door did I come in?" And I sort of dithered a bit and moved towards a few doors, and eventually saw one. I thought, "This is the door." Opened it, walked in, and I was in a walk-in larder. And I then panicked and thought, "Well, what do? I should have just walked out again and found another door." I stayed there for a while, thinking, you know, perhaps I should wait until they gone back. And they opened the door and said, "Are you all right?" And I said, "I'm sorry, I'm having a moment." And they said, "Oh, you poor chap. Oh, you've taken it hard as well." I said, "That's right." And they ended up making me a cup of tea. And I think I got a glass of something out of it. I was there for an hour or so, thinking, this is the way out of this social faux pas.
I remember it wasn't really a euthanasia, but I did a visit once. There was a very elderly lady that lived near here, and she had a large male Doberman. Mm-hmm. And when it came into the surgery, I diagnosed atrial fibrillation, and I spoke to the lady and said, "Well, I'll come round to the house and I'll talk you through it, and we'll start it off on some medication." So I went round and I said, "Well, we're gonna give this dog some propranolol, beta blocker, to try and slow down this fast heart rate and see if we can just settle things down for him." I said, "But you have to be aware that it's going to lower the blood pressure, and the dog may be a little bit quiet, or occasionally we get faints." So she said, "All right, okay, yes, Mr. Gorman." I remember she was a very elderly lady, and she was sat at her dining table watching me. So I said, "Would you like me to give the first dose for you?" And she said, "Oh, yes, please, yes, please." So it's a lovely dog, big as well. And it sat down in front of me, and I opened its mouth, and I popped in this propranolol tablet, and it just went, keeled over, dead. And she sat there and she went, "Oh, yes, I see what you mean."
Oh no!
God, that was terrible. That was. But
I remember going to a home visit on a night like tonight. You can probably hear the rain on the conservatory ceiling now, but it was peeing down. I got called out about 1:45
Rain on the conservatory roof.
sound effects courtesy of.
It sounds very posh, doesn't it? Yes.
I'm going to go and do some sound effects whilst you go deep into.
Oh, if you could.
Okay.
And this is an elderly lady. The dog had come to the end of the road, and we spoke for a while and decided the best thing to do was to put it to sleep. And it was well past midnight by the time that we did this. And I sat and had a cup of tea with her, and then I said, "What would you like doing with the body?" And she said, "So I'll bury it in the garden." I said, "Okay, all right." And I got up to go, and I said, "Well, when you said you'll bury it in the garden, you got someone who'll do it, have you?" She said, "No, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll take a couple of days over it." And I said, "Right, okay." And I started putting my coat on, and I thought, oh. I said, "Look, give me a shovel." I was there till 2 in the morning. I was completely covered in mud because I fell over several times because the garden was on a slope. And I dug this grave and buried this dog for her, poor thing. But I can't.
You tell that to the kids today, and they won't believe
Absolutely.
you.
God, hear that. I woke up the next morning, and my bed was absolutely coated in mud. I was too tired to actually undress when I got to bed. Collapsed.
But you do things like that for people, don't you? I mean, I think
you do.
I think that's. I think that is nice. Like you say, I think it's lovely to be part of the community. I wrote to the Vet Record recently because they had a little article in there by somebody who said that they'd been at the pub and somebody had come in and asked them about their dog because they knew they were a vet, and they were complaining and saying, "Aren't I entitled to my own private life?" And I said, "Well, no, you're a vet. It's a calling, and that's who you are. It defines you, or defines me anyway."
Yeah, I quite agree. So someone said to me, I was at everywhere I go, I'm sure it's the same with you. People would come up with, "Oh, Julian, I know you're not working today, but..."
Yeah.
Actually, no, I never mind.
No, nor do I at all.
That's not what you said when we were filming a video the other day.
There's a friend of mine who's a vet who does resent anyone asking him questions. And whenever he's at a party with people he doesn't know, when they say to him, "What do you do?" he says, "I'm a gynecologist," on the basis that people would probably be either too embarrassed to ask him something or show him. I don't know what sort of success rate he's had, but he's never been married.
I bet you've had a lot of clients offering to show you things you probably didn't want to see.
Yes, the rashes.
Mm.
Oh yes, my dog's got this rash. So have I. A bit like that.
Soon after I started, I worked in Swindon briefly, and I remember quite a large bloke and his wife coming in, and they came in, and the problem they wanted to describe was their dog, who'd kept having these his balls kept appearing in the wrong place, you see. After a bit of delving, obviously it turned out it's the normal bulbar cavernosum, the appearing. And so I explained all this to them. I said it's part of the erectile tissue, and that's quite normal. He turned to his wife and he said, "Mine never does that, does it?"
Too much information, too much. Brilliant.
They do lose their inhibitions when they're talking to you. They I mean, they'll confide anything in.
Yeah, they do, which is sometimes lovely, isn't it?
Yes.
And you are, you say you're part of the community, you're part of their world sometimes. And
Yeah.
I do love that. As I've got older and as I've been working at a practice for longer, then inevitably clients themselves have grown old and died or become ill and things. And again, it's wonderful being part of other people's lives and being able, hopefully, sometimes to support them and console them.
No, I completely.
Well, that's how you ended up with a dog, isn't it?
That's how I've ended up with a little dog. Yes, little Jake has come to us. His owner sadly isn't able to look after him anymore. So we have this lovely little dog who is exactly not the dog I ever thought I'd get.
What is it?
I thought I'd get a Labrador or something that would accompany me on the Pennine Way or on Arthur's Dyke. Instead, I've got a Shih Tzu cross that can't walk more than 200 yards because it has a gammy leg.
One gammy leg?
Well, one super gammy leg. The other three are kind of gammy,
Yes.
semi gammy.
Well, you wouldn't be a vet if you didn't have a collection of duff creatures, really.
What
I've
duff creatures have you got, though, Carl?
I've got a good collection of duff creatures. The latest one is Bernard the Dachshund, who was from a rescue in Wales, and he was being fostered by a vet down near Weston-super-Mare.
Right.
And the rescue thought he had elbow dysplasia because he had very wimpy front legs, sort of normal for a Dachshund, really. Anyway, they were trying to raise the money for an ulnar osteotomy or bilateral ulnar osteotomy, and Claire spotted this dog and said, volunteered my services, said, "Oh, if we have the dog, we'll do that for you." So we went and picked up Bernard, who is a lovely little dog, and I x-rayed him. I thought, it's funny. It doesn't quite look like I was expecting. So I sent it off to the local orthopaedic chap, and he said, "Oh God, no, don't do an ulnar osteotomy." He said he's got complete congenital dislocations of his elbows, and his radial heads don't come anywhere near the elbows, so he's just got ulnars at the elbows.
A radial hemiplegia, isn't it?
Yeah, it's and he said a pretty severe case of it. But to be fair, he comes charging around. He does a couple of miles walk with me quite happily. Does like parkour around the living room. He sort of leaps up onto the arms of the chairs and bounces around. It's great. Yes, and then I got a little kitten that I got from Cats Protection, which I went up to the Cats Protection weekly visit and saw this litter of kittens, and this particular one wasn't breathing very well. So I said, "Oh, we need to x-ray that." So I had it back at the practice and x-rayed it, and looked like all of its abdominal contents were inside its chest, at whatever age it was, 8-9 weeks of age. So I said, "Oh, we have to put this to sleep." And they said, "Okay." And as I was on the phone to them, it was just playing around in its cage and it looked quite happy. So I said, "I'll tell you what," I said, "I'll take it on and I'll do the surgery. I won't charge you, but I'll take the cat on. It'll probably die when we anaesthetize it anyway." So we anaesthetized it and repaired this massive pericardio diaphragmatic hernia.
Pericardio-peritoneal diaphragmatic hernia, was it?
Terrible. I mean, very dramatic x-rays. Sailed through this bloody operation, and the next morning I went down to see how it was. I'd taken it home and put it in a cage at home, and it climbed on top of this cage and leapt off. And I've got a video. I was taking a video to show how well it was doing, and the video ends with me going, "Oh God, no!" as it leaps off. And so he's 7 now, is Diesel, and he's still going strong.
Brilliant.
Diesel?
Trust me, because I keep saying to her, "Can we have this animal? It'll die quite soon." And she says, "I don't believe you anymore."
So now you're obviously, you love your surgery, as do I, and you're quite keen on gadgets as well, aren't you?
Yes, we do like a good gadget. I mean, that's I think that's why I wanted to buy a practice in the first place, so I could indulge myself.
Yeah.
We got a couple of those funny blood pressure measuring things that gather dust in the back of the cupboard.
Get it out and use it.
No, they're excellent. We use them a lot, and I'll tell you what I use them a lot for is my exotics. As soon as they're asleep, on goes the Doppler, and it's great. They're really good for our lizards and even the birds and things. Very good. So we do use them for what they're meant to be used for, but they're really, really useful for that monitoring of those exotics.
It was 24 years ago, I think, that I invented that thing.
Was it? And I probably bought it 23 and a half years, judging by the box.
I'll look up the record, shall I, and tell you how long you've owned your cat Doppler, Mr. Gorman.
Slightly overdue a service, I'm afraid, Mr.
Yes,
Gorman.
might be. Still going strong today. Thank you very much for that little plug. I appreciate that.
I think you've had one or two of them back a couple of times, but they have done very well over the years. Yeah, they're very good.
We send a couple of ours back, and it's usually because people have dropped them.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I cannot be held responsible for that. And you'd be
Okay.
surprised. I get phone calls. We've got one of your Dopplers. And you sort of go, yeah, where's this going? And it's broken. And it's as if it's my fault. They've had it 16 years.
Teslas, and it's gone into a juggernaut. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. I don't know. All good fun. All good
fun. My long-time favourite gadget was the CO2 laser, which is very popular in America because, of course, they do a lot of declawing of cats over there, and it's quick and relatively painless. Well, nothing's painless, but that's why a lot of clinics have them over there. But
so that's a dead industry then. Hopefully.
Yeah. Hopefully, yes.
Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully, I think
the laser was we bought it from Cruise many years ago, and they wanted me and some, I think, 4 other vets to be sort of demonstrators. So before buying it, they took us with one of their reps over to Colorado State University.
Very nice.
To do the laser course over there. So we had a lovely flight over. We picked up the hire car in Denver, I think it was, and we drove up to the university. Had a brilliant night. Turned up at the university the next morning, and the tutor said, well, day one's mostly just sort of anatomy and stuff for the undergraduates. You don't really need to attend this. So we said, righto, turned around, off we went. We visited the national parks, had a great day, got completely lost, got back to the Waffle House at about 1 o'clock in the morning, and had steaks at any time of the day there. So we had those and did the course the next day before flying back. It was tremendous.
Can we take just a moment here, because we've touched on a subject that I'm quite passionate about, and I think you guys are probably quite passionate about as well. But because not all of our listeners and viewers are specifically veterinary, we've touched on a subject about declawing cats.
Yes.
Can we just take a moment just to explain to those people that aren't specifically veterinary just exactly what that operation is, and that it's not just a case of taking the nail off the end of the finger or the phalange, or the toe. It's actually removing the whole of the first joint of the finger and the toe. Am I right in that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And they will do it to 9 or 10, 10 toes on the front and 8 toes on the back, all in one go. And these poor cats are in considerable discomfort afterwards. And also, they are disadvantaged for the rest of their lives. I mean, to be fair,
they can't climb, they can't protect themselves, they can't unravel people's jumpers.
Yes, they can't, as you say, can't wake you up in the middle of the night by clawing you helpfully. It's psychologically for a cat, it's a bit like having birds with clipped wings that can't fly. They've got a psychological disadvantage.
So that actually leads to a number of psychological issues, doesn't it? And that presents itself with the cat urinating inappropriately, marking territories. They struggle with their litter trays and all of that sort of stuff. So I understand that gradually the movement is growing across America, and it's now illegal in most states. It is illegal in the UK, isn't it?
It is illegal. It has been illegal for many years in the UK. It was legal to remove dew claws from dogs up until a while back. It's outlawed now, although there are still quite a few people that will do it to certain breeds. It's in the same group as detoothing, devocalizing, and cropping ears. They're mutilations. And interestingly enough, there's a little nonsense aside here. If you remove a digit from an animal, then that's mutilation. And I always think, as I imagine everyone else does, of the Greek word for mutilation, meaning the Greek for mutilation is colobus. And colobus monkeys have 4 fingers. They're missing a thumb. Now, if 100 or so years ago, colobus monkeys were called colobus monkeys because they were thought to be mutilated because they lost their thumbs, then how back then could it have been acceptable to mutilate dogs and cats? There's this complete disconnect between what's fair and right for our pet animals. And the Americans are just getting it, I think. Hopefully, they're just getting it. They haven't quite got human rights or BLM yet, but they're just about getting that perhaps dogs and cats can feel some pain.
Well, the law here was, I don't know what it is at the moment, but the law was that you could do surgical procedures to kittens and puppies before their eyes opened without the use of anaesthetic, hence tail docking and dew claw removing, without the need for any anaesthetic or a pain relief. Which, I mean, I don't know why anybody thought that just because the eyes were closed they couldn't feel any pain.
Absolutely, yeah. It's because they can't see what's happening. What's we doing in the back there? Oh my God, you're taking it off.
Extend to blind people as well. You don't need to waste anaesthetics on blind people, because
presumably not. Maybe any blind people listening to this could write in and tell us, do they feel pain? Don't write in.
Don't write in. I think we know the answer to that one.
Don't write in.
I think we know that.
Just do it for you, because obviously it's a little tricky.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't
know.
Well,
how do you manage with, because well, not me, I haven't dealt with any so far, but our 2 of my colleagues have been very good and seeing our deaf clients, and they've been thoughtful and have put visors on, because obviously the lip reading and the facial expressions are so important to the deaf people. So
they are. It's interesting. I had a deaf person in the other day, and my wife is a brilliant signer. So she learned sign language because before we met, she had some deaf friends. Well, she still has some deaf friends. You can't have those anymore. We're married now. Compared to us getting together and her having some deaf friends, she learned how to sign, and so she taught me a little bit. And so I have a few deaf people who come and see me. And you're absolutely right that they really struggle. So I have this plastic visor, and I take the mask off, but we're behind the other plastic screen anyway. But I'll sign and talk, and they get by. But they've said to me they're really, really struggling at the moment. One of them, the only place that she's been since lockdown is to the vets, because she's terrified to go anywhere else, precisely because no one's going to understand and no one's going to know that she's deaf. And she's afraid that she'll be ridiculed or outcast or just have a really bad experience of it. So, terrible thing.
Yes.
What's been your experience, Carl?
Yeah, it's well, actually, one thing that because we're part of CVS, have been for a few years now, and actually CVS had a very good initiative, which was to sign up to the Sign Video initiative, which is where a deaf person can on a mobile device get in contact with a signer,
right,
who acts as the translator. So the deaf person will sign to the translator, who will speak to the vet, and vice versa. And they can do it at home as well, so that the translator can phone us up and make appointments or explain symptoms or whatever. And that's a really good service, actually.
Really good. I hadn't heard of that.
That's superb. So what's that called?
Sign Video.
Sign Video, right? Okay.
Very good. Yeah, I'm very impressed. It was actually sort of launched at one of our conferences by a deaf. She's a sort of patient care assistant or at one of the practices, and she gave a marvelous talk about how she works, how she copes with what she has to do, and how she has to explain to the deaf clients a lot of the instructions which we take for granted, even things that we sort of write down, because sign language has a different grammar to spoken language. Sometimes, you know, what would seem to be a clear instruction from us actually is not actually grasped all that well by the deaf person.
Yeah.
You know, things I hadn't even considered, but she was inspirational, I have to say. Fantastic.
Okay. Well, if I could take a couple of seconds here, I'm just going to quickly share my screen here, Carl, and I'm hoping that I get this right. I've not been that good at it over the
absolutely
learning. So, is this what you're actually talking about?
It is, yes.
Sign Video. So that's signvideo.co.uk, which is need to pre-book an online interpreter. So anybody can use this service then?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know if there's a cost involved somewhere. If there is, I know that sort of CVS have signed up for it, but I think for deaf people, it's a free service.
Download our app now. No need for an account. Just click and call.
There we go.
Wow.
That's excellent. That's
That is
really
a superb service. Guys, it's been an amazing evening. I've had a great time tonight. I hope you have as well, Carl, and I hope all of our listeners have. Normally about this time of the evening, we I feel quite bad about this because you normally do a weekly joke on Facebook, don't you, Carl?
I do.
A sort of a dad joke, but on this show, this is the Julian and Mike show, and so normally Julian would do the joke.
I don't mind. I've got a joke, but I don't mind Carl doing one.
Have you got a joke, Carl?
Oh, well, I had my last one that was on there, I suppose, which was that quite topical because we now have a bee veterinary society, and it's been a wonderful summer for the bees. The flowers, I don't know if you've noticed, but the flowers have been fantastic this year, and I've seen more bees than ever. But the problem is they've been doing too well. They've been feeding so much on all this pollen that they've been finding it very, very hard to sort of fly and to fit back into their little sort of cells in the hives. It's been a bit of an obesity crisis, I'm afraid.
Brilliant.
I thought you were bad. I thought you were bad, Julian. I get it. Hang on. City. Right. Oh, right. Okay. Sorry. It's me, Carl. It's me, mate. It's not your joke. No. It's me. I'll have another gin.
I loved it.
Yeah.
And I struggle to think of a good. I always try and link a joke in with what we're going to be talking about. I haven't figured out idea what we're going to be talking about, but I thought, well, let's think of Malaysia, because I went to Malaysia on my honeymoon. And one of the best things that we did, I'll rephrase that. One of the loveliest sights that we saw there was in the Taman Negara, the national park. There, we went to the Tua Telinga. I probably got the pronunciation completely wrong, but it's the Bat Cave, and it was quite incredible before coronavirus, so you wouldn't have had the faintest risk of wonderful. They're walking through or crawling through this cave full of bats. And so I thought, well, let's do a bat joke. And we move from Malaysia to Transylvania, where Sister Mary Damien and Sister Patrick are driving along. And this vampire bat jumps onto the car and starts using its teeth or gnawing through the windscreen to get to them. And Sister Mary Damien says, oh, for heaven's sake, Sister Patrick, what is a vampire bat? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And Sister Patrick says, it's all right. Don't worry, Sister Mary Damien. I've got it all in hand. She puts the windscreen wipers on. knocks the bat off. And, oh, thank goodness for that. And the bat comes back, grabs hold of this windscreen wiper with its little claws, pulls it back, snaps it away, and starts grazing through the windscreen again. And oh, Sister Patrick, what are we going to do? Oh, goodness! Don't worry, don't worry, Sister Mary Damon. I've got it all under control. She puts a windscreen wash on. She says, I put holy water in the windscreen wash. Gives a little squirt, and steam comes off this vampire bat. And he's really peed off by this, and he's starting to smoulder a bit. But eventually, the windscreen wash runs out, and the bat shakes his little furry body and starts burrowing away through the windscreen again. Oh, for heaven's sake, we're going to be killed by this vampire bat. What are we going to do? Don't worry, Sister Mary Dave, don't worry. Show him your cross. Good idea, Sister Patrick. So she puts her head out the window and says, will you bugger off, you annoying little bat? You're really pissing me off now, you know.
And on that note,
with
the tribute to that wonderful Irish comedian Dave Allen, I will thank you in particular, Carl Gorman, for joining us. Oh shit! Sorry.
No, don't swear. Don't swear. We didn't.
Oh, right. Whoops! I cut. Edit that bit out. Right. Okay.
We've got a CPD certificate.
Oh man,
we've done CPD. We have done CPD. So here we go.
Well, we have done CPD. We've done lots of CPD, and in fact, there is a picture of the bat. We didn't do anything about tapirs tonight, Julian.
No, but there's a Malaysian tapir.
No, you just give it up with the tapirs, will you?
There's a temple in Malaysia. And look, you like laser surgery, and I couldn't get any pictures of lasers.
Fantastic.
But there's a stormtrooper, and I think they use lasers. And look, there is a wild ginger plant, or ginger flower, in Malaysia.
Wonderful.
And it says, certificate of absolute awesomeness. This certifies that the humble viewer has learned a brainful today to take a day off. And it says, me and him, veterinary ramblings.
Marvelous.
There we go. So you can present that to the RCVS and RCVS knowledge to show that you have completed your X number of hours of CPD. That's worth how many? That's worth an hour of CPD, is it, Julian?
About an hour.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
But no, only worth it though if we complete the regulations. The regulatory requirements are, of course, to reflect on the knowledge.
Man.
So,
have I had a holiday for 2 weeks or something?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if everybody would kindly join us to reflect on our CPD from this evening. Okay.
We're going to reflect.
I've got all out of sync with this whole thing.
That's good.
It's like I've had a 2-week holiday, Julian, except it's you that's been away.
Yeah, all right. I went away. I went to Northumberland. I learned a new language.
Why?
Why? I had a little fishy on my little dishy in a book anyway, did you?
Yeah. Hang on a minute. Hang on. I'm going to put my mask back on here. Hang on.
No, you're doing it against hand signals. Okay, so for those people who were watching or even were listening, it might just foul, really, honestly.
Was he giving us the 5-minute countdown? And they.
Yeah, it was a couple of gestures. Yeah, it was a 2-minute countdown.
2-minute countdown.
2-minute countdown. Yeah, and we've got to go.
We must go. Playing banjo at 8 eggs. Turn that right.
We've got to go. Listen, if you've enjoyed the show, thank you ever so much. As I say again, Carl, thank you so much for joining us. If you've enjoyed the show,
thanks so much, Carl.
Click like, share. It's been a great evening. Thank you very much indeed. And as Julian did a wonderful Sister Mary, Iris, Patrick, whatever gesture to Dave Allen, one of our favourite comedians. May your dog go with you.
May your dog go with you.
Thank you very much. Enjoy.
Thanks, Carl. Thank you, Carl.
That's great fun.
And cut.
It's a wrap. Well, there we go. Was that very painful?
Very good.
Did you enjoy yourself, Carl?
I did. It was good. It was good fun.
You were Some great
If anyone
stories
ever
tonight.
watches this, it's going to be a mystery to me. But actually, people are watching it. They're watching it all over the world.
Excellent.
We actually had someone watch it in Malaysia.
Did you?
Yeah.
Was it a relation of yours?
Probably. I have to pre-warn them.
What a great night.
Yes, it's been great fun.
Have you enjoyed yourself, Carl?
Definitely, yes.
Good. Good.
Thanks so much for coming on, Carl. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Really, really appreciate it. So have you watched any other episodes other than Georgie Hollis?
I watched a bit of Phil because I've got to keep an eye on Phil. And
Well, you're following in footsteps, aren't you? Yeah, absolutely brilliant. So listen, thank you ever so much, Carl. We really appreciate it.
that's great. Thanks for the evening. Been good fun.
Thanks a lot. See you soon, Carl.
All good.
Yes, I will.
Take care.
Cheers.
All right, ta-da.
Bye.
Bye. That was all right.
I think I went well. Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
He's great, isn't he? I do like him.
Yeah.
I was a bit in awe the first time I met him on one of the committee meetings because he'd written a book. I'd written a couple of books at the time, but my books were shit. He'd written a book that people read, and I thought,
He's written a book.
So I was a bit afraid I wouldn't speak to him in the first couple of meetings. But yeah, he's such a nice guy.